my end goal is that if we can leave you all with a lot of questions, and you really want to talk to these experts, then we have succeeded. So my role is to really get you to think about a lot of questions and not answers. I mean, they'll provide a lot of answers too, but enough answers so you say, my God, now I know the real questions to ask. So that's my goal. So before you hear from these people, I want to just I was trying to think. I mean, I know a little bit about IoT, but I talked to each one of them one-on-one, and I learned more in the process of, and that's one of the beauties of being a moderator. So I was trying to think, what is it that I can share with you that might be halfway interesting? So this afternoon I was getting a lot of emails for the Mother's Day. You know, Mother's Day is next weekend, right? I mean, it's coming weekend. So here's a question for you. How many moms does it take to change a light bulb? None. Because none of the children care for me, they never call me, and so I'm just going to sit in the dark, you know. So call mom, okay, next weekend. I'm not going to introduce the panelists, their detailed bios. You have the thing in front of you, I'm sure you all looked at it. And so we have Bill here, we have Gary here, and we have May here. And I'll let you figure out who's who. That may be just to help you keep awake, that's... So I'm going to provide just a very quick perspective on Northeastern. Because a lot of people ask me, and I was walking around, what's Northeastern? So Northeastern is a Boston-based university, has been around for 100 plus years. And they are the ones who wrote the book on what's called the co-op programs. Co-op is a work experience program that's like a job machine. I don't want to take too much time, but it's a 125-year-old university, and they decided to launch a campus to serve the tech and engineering community in the Bay Area. Our campus in San Jose, we're launching one in San Francisco. We are one of the very few universities that have a course in IoT. So we are ourselves learning a lot in the process. Alanta is here, back in the back. Many of you met her. And we'll talk a little bit about that course, because I think many of you may have some interest, or somebody who has an interest. So let me get to the main topic of the IoT and get into this. So, but before I do that, actually, the most interesting thing I saw on the display, I don't know if you've seen that, it's a frying pan that talks to you. I mean, I don't know what life's getting to, a frying pan that talks to you. In fact, at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this year, the most interesting thing was a smart hairbrush. Now, women pay attention to this thing. So this hairbrush is about $100, and essentially it can tell you how dry your hair is, if you have split ends, because it's picking up the noise, it's picking up the moisture content. This is what the world's, everything is getting like sensors. In fact, I saw this very interesting clip. This guy just getting home, gets a text message saying, I asked you to pick up some milk. You never listened to me. And he looks at it, it's signed by his refrigerator. So this is kind of give you a little bit of a sense of IoT. So this is how I look at IoT. So let me get serious for a moment. Actually, there's two people here, Bill and myself, that are a little bit older than everybody else, right? So we have this historical perspective. So think of it this way, Internet's going through 4 waves. So the first wave of Internet was the Internet of documents. And Internet of documents, we used to talk of like hundreds of millions of dollars of market, and a lot of companies, when the Netscape came around, everybody wanted to put their web page and their documents and forms online. And basically, if there's a real winner that came out of that is Adobe. Right? I mean, I think that's, you may argue, but just for purpose of discussion. So then pretty quickly, 6-7 years later, we figured out that you can also do commerce. You can do buying and selling on the internet. So eBay came out, Amazon came out, and now we are talking billions of dollars suddenly. So from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. And of course, probably Amazon is an unqualified success out of that, and there's many others. I mean, e-commerce, the way of life. So then people said, gee, why just connect buyers and sellers? We can connect people. So the third wave of internet was Internet of People. And of course, MySpace started the whole thing, and probably Facebook is the unqualified leader in this thing. And so that's the third wave. Now we are talking tens of billions of dollars, or hundreds of billions of dollars actually, and now comes the fourth wave. And I don't think I have to describe to you what is the fourth wave, right? The Internet of documents, Internet of commerce, Internet of people, and now Internet of things. And we are talking trillions of dollars. And trillions of dollars is definitely way more than my bank account, so I don't know how big that is. You know, it just has a lot of zeros, that's all I know. And so that's kind of hopefully gives you how critical this issue is, how much opportunity is there, professionally, from a business standpoint, any other way you look at it. And that's what excites me. And and obviously, the big question in my mind is that there are a lot of companies vying for the same spot Amazon has, or same spot Adobe has, or Facebook. There are a lot of new players, there are a lot of existing players, and it's all up for grabs. But certainly, I would say one thing in general, it's easier for startup companies or young companies because they're more nimble, and they don't have the baggage. So, on the other hand, you know, established companies have a lot of capital, they have a lot of strength, they have a global footprint. So, very, very interesting. So let me, with that sort of as a backdrop, let me turn this over to our panelists. And the first question I'm going to ask them, and by the way, we're going to have a lot of, I'm going to just try to ask a lot of questions, keep this moving and flowing, but basically provide their big picture perspective. How do they see this evolving? Is it, you know, what's the scary part? What's the fun part of this thing? What's the vision, market, shape, size? And by the way, just to sort of put this in context, Gary brings a very deep enterprise perspective in this thing. You know, coming from Cisco in the learning and business development world, executive in many, many different roles. And especially with focus on networking, and I asked Gary particularly to maybe even explain these new terms that have cropped out, fog computing, edge computing, you know, these things are, and they're all kind of revolving around the next generation of communications. May certainly brings expertise from the startup world, and particularly the cybersecurity aspects of you know, this whole IoT revolution. And then Bill, you know, has a very deep experience, but if there's an area that I really want Bill to focus on is a more data-driven perspective. It's going to generate massive amounts of data. How do you deal with this particular issue? So you can see three very diverse perspectives. Everybody has a very deep knowledge in their particular topic area. So with that, I will sort of shut up and start from this end and turn it over to Gary.
I missed the question.
So the question is, let me, okay, you know.
So I think that, you know, from my perspective in Cisco, and I try to be careful about saying what I see happening in the marketplace, what I personally see as the direction and the happenings of technology evolution and what's happening in IoT, may or may not be exactly what Cisco thinks, because the most amazing thing about this period of time that we're in is the speed of change which is happening in technology. Everyone talks about this. Okay, so technology is accelerating, the speed of change is accelerating, that's all fine. But I don't know of another situation from the Industrial Revolution to in the span of human history where a significant change has simultaneously occurred in pretty much every aspect of society. So it doesn't matter what industry you work in. It doesn't matter what your role in your job or your role in your family or your role in society is. The Internet of Things and the technology changes happening today is affecting you. And whether you even think about the changes that have occurred to you in your lives in the last 5 years, or whether your mother or your grandmother or your father or your grandfather or your children, watch what's occurring to them and watch every job change as a result of this notion of IoT. Because it's one thing to say that all devices will be connected to the internet. Connectivity is part of it. But the bigger impact is on interaction, how people interact with technology, how technology interacts with people. And so the adventurous or the ambitious or the exciting thing about it is that there are no limits, and everything is changing at the same time. The challenge, or the scary part is, what keeps me up at night is thinking about, well, what does that mean from a personal standpoint and personal security and personal information, or device security or device protection? And as we think about all these changes that occur, and as you as engineers are working in all the various companies and spaces that you're in, as you think about the development of technologies and the implementation of technology globally, security to me is the single most important aspect to any new thing that we develop. There was a question posed about what's the killer application of IoT, what's the thing that's going to drive IoT? And the answer is there isn't one. There isn't a device, there's not a product, There's not an application. There's no smartphone application that's going to revolutionize the world in and of itself. The major single killer application of IoT is security, and how we protect people, how we protect things and devices, and how we protect information, which is ultimately the most important part of who we are and how we're participating in this world that we go around in. So it's very exciting. It's a huge opportunity. At the same time, we have a lot of work to do to make sure that it's done right, that it's done safely, and that it's done ethically as we go through this process.
Thank you, Garrett.
I just love to have a panelist like Gary on the panel because basically he did the pitch for us. We are a startup called ZingBox, and all we do is IoT security. And thank you so much. So I'm very happy.
It's the warm-up act. It's just the warm-up act.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear a fellow panelist is emphasizing how important security is moving forward for IoT. A little bit background, I actually worked at Cisco CTO office for 14 years, so I got the same kind of brainwash of how important IoT is. And 2.5 years ago, I came out together with a couple of friends and started the company called ZingBox. I think we are probably one of the few ones right now is actually working in the real trend, and we're seeing customers every day. We are dealing with real market every day, so I don't have all those big fancy numbers, but I'm happy to share what we're seeing in the real world now and what our customers are asking for in terms of IoT and IoT security, and what kind of challenges we're seeing in IoT and IoT security. And we provide software security solutions, and right now we're focusing on healthcare market in the US and advanced manufacturing in Japan. And in terms of our view of IoT moving forward or IoT security moving forward, and actually it was interesting, I think back years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, Cisco started having this demo place. It's called Smart Home in our main building there. And even back then, there were like smart refrigerators, smart microwave, and showing how all these fancy things these smart devices can do. And that was the vision of moving forward, the smart devices, the IoT. That was actually before IoT became such a hot topic. But I think even nowadays, at least not in my home, it's still not the reality yet. And I think actually when we start the company, we look at the consumer, we look at the enterprise. We don't think the consumer market is quite ready yet. It is a nice story, it is a fancy dream and idea. Okay, you have the remote control light, you have the refrigerator talking to you, you have your television talking to your refrigerator. But the key thing, actually at Cisco CTO office, we started working on IoT security years ago, and we worked on smart buildings, smart cities, a smart grid, smart connected vehicles. We didn't see customers paying for those solutions until several years ago, when actually started with smart manufacturing. They start to see the value that IoT is bringing to their business, how IoT can help them save money. And actually when we talk to customers, they were saying there are two things. If you can do one of the two things, we'll pay for your solution. Either you can help me make money or help me save money. So I think for IoT future, there are lots of hypes and talks about IoT, but I think what we see today, and I think moving forward, what really make IoT take off is actually how much business, how much convenience or how much business value it can really bring to our life, bring to our work. And then actually we see the sectors that moving forward the most are the sectors that they can leverage IoT security. For example, smart manufacturing, that all these sensors can help them reduce downtime, which is a very critical thing for smart manufacturers. And then they say, we spend a certain amount of money to deploy IoT, and then it can save me 10 times more, 100 times more to avoid downtime. So they see the ROI there. And same thing for healthcare. We see hospitals are actually moving very advanced in IoT deployment because with all these electronic devices, they can dramatically increase their efficiency and reduce their error rate and reduce their basically and save money and increase their revenue. So I think moving forward, those are the areas in the critical infrastructure, in the critical operations, IoT would be the first ones moving forward, and that's where we see IoT value is.
Thank you, May. So you bring in more of a business perspective. Bill?
Okay, so from my perspective, I guess I teach at the University of California here in Silicon Valley, and I'm also the chair for the Emerging Technology Group at the Chinese Institute of Engineers. So from my perspective, as a sort of technology watcher, as well as a teacher, what I see, of course, number one, I want to echo what Gary said at the beginning. What's happening right now is sort of like for people who were like older like us, who went through or if you like to watch World War II movies, okay, you probably remember about the Blitzkrieg. Okay, the Blitzkrieg is when Germany sent out the Panzer divisions across all of Europe. And they move very fast, and they move across all the fronts. Okay, so that's the way that IoT will be hitting. It's moving very fast because I don't know where you guys. I guess there's a guy not from Cisco, but from Google, the director of technology or AI from Google, called Ray Kurzweil. He said that the rate that technology is moving right now is at an exponential rate. Okay, so that is basically causing a lot of disruption, and in order for you to keep up, okay, you basically have to follow, and you have to effect transformations in order to catch up. Okay. So one thing is the thing about things are moving very fast. Is moving across all fronts, so it's actually affecting everyone. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm going to pitch here, just sort of like the third leg, when people talk about IoT or the internet in general, there are always 2 or 3 items that's on everybody's list: privacy, security, right, and so on, and of course, big data. So one of the things that maybe I'll be exposing a little bit more this evening is the big data. Because really, if you think about it, it's not really about the things. It's really about the data. You know, so you say Internet of Things. Well, we've had refrigerators, ovens, thermostat, cars, houses. They're always been around. Right now, when we talk about, worry about the security, we worry about the privacy. Okay, or we worry about the volume, the velocity. What we are worrying about is really the data that these things are generating. That's what we're worrying about. Okay, so I think that as a first round, I'm going to leave it there, saying that how we're going to be addressing is that we need to deal with the big data, because that's the problem that we need to solve. Okay, and I'll be talking a little bit about the role of AI. Okay, which is probably the if not the second, most interesting topic or the hottest topic right now besides IoT is AI and machine learning, and how these two actually play together. Okay, so just in closing, I want to say the reason why the technology rate is moving so fast is because there are so many technologies. Okay, there are technologies in materials, there are technology advances in genetics, okay, big data, IoT, robotics, AI, and all of those technologies are sort of compounding. That's the reason that why technology is moving so fast.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Very, very good perspective here. That something to think about data. It's all about data. So let me have some follow-up questions. So Gary, on your part, so you sort of made a very interesting point that it's not a single app, it's not a single product, it's everything. It's like, I think if I can use Cisco's thing
about IoT is that the the implementations of technologies are very small. The applications are very small, the technologies are very small. So how many of you are aside from your smartphone, are currently using some form of wearable? Fitbit, Garmin tracker, raise your hand if you use some other wearable besides your smartphone is a wearable, but something else.
So about 20%.
We're about 20%. So now, if you don't have a Fitbit, you know somebody who does. If you're not wearing some type of fitness tracker, you know somebody who does. And so those are typically the numbers where something happens to start to explode and take off. The hard thing for me is that, I don't know, there's so many of those things, it's hard to keep track of what to adopt. I was saying to PK earlier, I just built a house. I don't live here, so when I say I built a house, all of you that live here are thinking, oh wow, that's amazing, you built a house. No, I live in Texas, it's not a big deal. I live in Dallas and we build houses all the time. It's not the same as building a house here, so don't think too much of it. But I just built a house and next door to me I built my parents' house. And in that process, I was just flooded with Internet of technologies. So now on my phone I've got 7 applications that control my house. From the window blinds, to the thermostat, to the water heater, to the garage doors. Now, I work for Cisco, and I can deal with that. Do you know how hard it was to talk to my mother about opening her garage door with her iPhone? And so, even though we have these adoptions, these technologies, sometimes there's the application of it. Now, I was thinking as Bill was talking to me, I wonder what would happen if I went into the phone. I looked up and I saw that these speakers are Sonos speakers. These are IoT speakers. They're capable of being streamed to different sources of music from anybody who can control the network anywhere in the world, from Spotify to Pandora to songs on your iPhone to your own iTunes account, whatever you have. If someone could control these speakers, they could control what's happening in this room. And I thought, how long would it take my wife to call me if I started playing a song she hates in the living room right now, where she's probably at home watching TV? So and I could do that, but I'm afraid of what she might say if I answer the phone. But
stay in California.
I might not go home tomorrow. The point is that as you think about these different aspects, these are all very simple IoT applications that you're probably sitting there saying, yeah, I do that, yeah, I do that, yeah, I do that. And so does everybody else. And what's happening is not that it's the internet that has been introduced to you. It's not the first time you did email or the first cell phone you got 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever the case may be. It's that each and every aspect of your life is starting to be touched by this. And so as we personally think about how we interact with that, as we personally think about how we adopt that, as we help others do that, the tipping point is probably past us. And we didn't realize it occurred.
Is it just happening?
The tipping point occurred when Apple introduced the first iPhone, and everyone went out and got one. And when you started getting made fun of for your flip phone, because all your friends had iPhones, to me that was the actual tipping point that occurred. Because I was a late adopter, so I hated email. And to me the iPhone was easy email on the phone. I hate email with a passion. So I resisted. And then I got tired of getting made fun of by having my Ericsson flip phone and got the iPhone and never looked back. So to me, that was really the tipping point that had occurred. It has already happened, and it's going to happen so quickly from here. You're having conversations that you don't even realize you're having, and you're participating in IoT. And that's the amazing thing about it, and also the frightening thing about it. Like, oh no, what do we do from here?
Yeah, thanks, guys. So for May, just to follow on, first of all, it struck me as unusual that you started a new enterprise, a new venture, ZingBox, that is so unique in some ways that, I mean, if I was thinking of starting I was saying there's $1 trillion market, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to start something, I would think of something like this. So I'm sure you have probably deep insights into the IoT and the device security, and I mean, how are you, not so much, how are you seeing this as a market, because I thought it would be the product people and standards people who would deal with that, so I'm sure you have some insights into just looking at the whole idea of cybersecurity and IoT. So give us that little insight.
Actually, for my long years at Cisco, I was, I really felt that all the great ideas had already been thought of, had already been worked on, had already been finished. by all the previous smart people. I just felt like, why wasn't I born 100 years ago? You know, then we had the opportunity to do lots of innovation. And especially when I was doing my PhD dissertation, you read all these great papers that previous people have already thought of, have already done. I just felt like there's no way I can do another startup. But actually, until I started working on IoT, all of a sudden I feel the whole world is changing because of the IoT. And actually, at Cisco, started years ago. Our group started working on IoT. I just started to see so many new opportunities because all these sensors, all these connected devices, and all of a sudden we actually, thanks to both Gary and Bill talking about the two key points I wanted to talk about, because of all these connected devices, all of a sudden we can get this huge amount of data that we can either cannot access before, we cannot get before, or we couldn't get this data in such real time so fast before. And now when you go to the real field, you feel, okay, people are deploying more and more IoT devices and collecting all this data. But most people, most enterprises, most organizations have no idea what to do with these data. And there are actually lots of things you can do. And also because this huge amount of devices is projected, you know, in 2020 it's going to be 50 billion, whatever the number is, it's going to be huge. And because of all these devices coming to the network, it's bringing lots of new challenges. And security is definitely one key thing. And actually what triggered me to start this company together with a couple of my friends at Cisco, actually at CTO office, we helped do some technical due diligence for Cisco's mergers and acquisition. And back then, IoT wasn't this hot at all. And actually, even when we started ZingBox more than 2 years ago, there wasn't even any market data on total addressable market for IoT security. Actually, we got lots of questions saying, oh, is there really going to be new challenges for IoT security? Do we really need a new security solution? And actually, back at Cisco, the business team did a analysis on all the different players for IoT in terms of from hardware to software to application to cloud and in different verticals. And when it shows for IoT security, it was just blank. There wasn't any players because IoT wasn't even fully deployed. Then people didn't run into IoT security issues. But we as a long-term networking person, we know if all these devices are connected, they're going to be guaranteed would be issues for security.
Thank you, very interesting. So, Bill, you come from the data perspective, and we all know that all these devices are spewing large amounts of data, and there's no way on earth we can have enough storage, actually, this storage to sort of in the cloud or wherever to store all this data. What are you going to do?
Okay, so let's start again from IoT, right, or IoE, according to Cisco, the Internet of Everything. So actually, no matter what area you're in, right now because of the technology, because of the social media, because everybody's walking with a phone and taking pictures and sending their bodies, the photos, there's so much data. So this is especially true in IoT, or will be especially true in IoT. So what's the answer, right? So right before we started the panel here, I was actually walking around and looking at some of the products from IngDan. And I saw a smart pen, right? And then I walked further and I saw a smart helmet, okay? So maybe you all start with the smartphone. So the thing is the same thing. We are dealing with big data because there's humongous amounts of data. So big data, basically, the first emphasis is the amount of data, which is the volume, the speed that the data is coming in or going out, which is velocity, right? And then the variety, that it all comes in all forms, structure, semi-structure, and so on. But the thing that we have to deal with, like anything, whenever we have too much of something, how do we make it manageable? Okay, so the answer is really to go from big data to smart data. So the answer is actually no different than the smart pen or the smart helmet or the smart hat. Okay. So what is smart data? Okay. So what is needed? One of the talks that I gave, I think this year, was that how do you transform from big data into smart data? Okay. So a little bit of background. So for how many people here have heard about the knowledge pyramid? DIKW. Okay. So that's good. So I'm actually playing my role of educator here. Okay, so what we have is that we have humongous amounts of data. And that's what is called sea of data. A lot of data. Okay. That's the bottom of the pyramid. Okay. But that is too much data, and not all of the data is useful. So what you need to capture from the data is information. Okay? Information is the subset of the data that is useful. That's information. Okay? And from information, you have to go to the next layer of the pyramid is knowledge. Okay? So from the information, you obtain some knowledge. And finally, if you ever get to the top of the pyramid, you get either understanding or wisdom. Okay? Now, everybody, even in daily life, not everybody is a wise person, right? You can live and die and never be a wise person. Okay? So not everybody gets to the wisdom. But hopefully we'll get into the understanding. Okay? Okay, so how do you move across from the sea of data into something useful? Or how do you obtain smart data? So besides the volume, the speed, and the variety, there are two other V's. So when people talk about big data, there's always, people started with the 3 V's, they move gradually to 4 V's, and now it's 5 V's or 6 V's. So if you think about it, data, there's a lot of data. Now there could be duplicated data, there could be bogus data, there could be wrong data. What you have to do is to say, filter out the useful data. Okay? So if it's duplication, throw it away. If it's too much data, throw it away. Because let's say that you have a smart meter, electrical meter at home. Well, every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes, it sends information to PG&E. Okay, and on the status of usage of electricity at your home. But if nobody's at home, everybody's at work, the kids are in school, the thing is not really moving that much. So why you keep sending the same amount of data? Okay, if maybe data at 9 o'clock is not that much different between 9 and say 5 p.m. when everybody gets home. Okay, so you have to do filtering, you have to do aggregation, okay, and so on. So, okay, so in order to do that, and this is sort of another subject, we will talk about different data, different technology subjects, right? One is big data, the other one is analytics. So this is really the thing, is that why are we capturing the data? It's because we want to use the data for something. For instance, we want to know, he just bought a book on soccer. Okay, we know that then he must be interested in sports. Okay, so next time he logs into Amazon, he's going to get, a pitch on, okay, do you want to buy a few more books on NBA or baseball or whatever? Okay, so and what does that provide you with the how do you leverage the data? It's the analytics. Okay, now I don't have the time to go through all the different layers of analytics. Okay, but basically in 1 minute, I'm going to say that it all started with, say, descriptive or diagnostic analytics. That means that you look back at the data and you say, oh, okay, that's what happened. Okay, so that's descriptive or diagnostic analytics. Okay, but that's not enough. What you want to do is that you want to look into the future. So that's where predictive analytics is to say, oh, based on the information that I had in the past, I can extrapolate to the future and figure that maybe he is interested in a book on baseball or basketball. Okay, so that's predictive analytics. Okay, the next layer is prescriptive. Okay, so knowing what is going to be happening, I think in the future, you're going to make a recommendation, say, maybe this is what you should do. That's like the doctor giving you a prescription. Say, okay, you have a headache, go to the drugstore and buy this medicine. Okay, that's prescriptive. But now the ultimate, and this is maybe what I'll get into later on, is that machine learning and AI.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay. So that is cognitive analytics. We'll stop here.
We're very. I hope you got the how complicated the data issues are. So next round of questions, I still have a couple of serious topics, and I want to make sure we finish on time. And I know hopefully you can see the opportunities. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I'm saying, oh my God, I mean, this is such a vast field. It's not any one thing. All the way from data to sensors to tipping point to security. I mean, it's all over the place. So I would ask my panelists to try to keep your responses within a minute and a half each on this next one. But basically, I think Bill started on this thing, but really the way to oversimplify it, so you have IoT as a data source, and it's generating large amounts of data, and you have all your social data, you have all your transaction data, you got data all over the place. And much of this data looks like it's starting to teach machines all the different kind of analytics. So machines are learning now. And when machines are learning, they're leading to artificial intelligence and robotics. And robots are taking our jobs away, as you know, that's kind of so there's a, sort of a whole evolution that's taking place. And I want each one of them to sort of be the high-level visionary. It's because they understand this topic so well and talk about how is this all melding together? I mean, how is it all coming together? Let me repeat, the data piece of it, the IoT piece, the analytics, the robotics, the edge computing, I mean, it's something more than just sort of IoT is happening. It's not just about efficiency, it's not just about, a new cute appliance. So Gary?
Yeah, well, I think it's easiest to talk about IoT in the context of how you as a person interacts with technology. I mentioned it, I'm guilty of this. The only references I gave were to playing music in my house and wearable technology for fitness applications and these things. So it's easy to understand how devices I use are connected to each other and doing things. But as was mentioned before, if we have by 2020 50 billion devices connected, and we have, let's say, 8 or 9 billion people on the planet at the time, assuming that actually they won't all still be connected by then. I hope so, but Cisco's trying to do our part in there, but we'll see what happens. It's not about how you are going to interact with 65 different devices. The real impact of IoT comes from when devices are independently interacting with each other. And when we talk about the considerations of data and storage, so in 1956, 1 megabyte of storage in today's dollars cost about $60,000, 1 meg. And today a meg of storage costs about 1/100th of a cent. And so storage is cheap, but it's not limitless. The real impact of IoT comes from when devices and things start communicating with each other. We all know what cloud computing is. We talk about the real impact coming from fog computing. What is fog computing? Well, fog is a cloud that's close to the ground. So can you do things and build systems and interactions which are devices working together in close proximity and not even share data with the cloud or centrally, or not even produce the big data problems that have come from sending too much data and trying to transpose it into information? And so really, we talk about it in terms of how people interact with technology because it's easy. The real big thing is seeing devices working together. And it is a little scary because it is taking jobs. It will never take your job. When we have a robot dean of a university, then I think we're all done. Then we won't have people, let alone...
We'll have smart deans. We'll have smart deans at that.
They'll just deal with students faster than you can, that's all. But that's really the thing when you think about IoT, you think about it not in terms of just how I deal with technology, but think about how when technology works with each other. And when discrete devices start to communicate in small systems. And that's really what's most amazing. And then when you think about there is no human interaction to those actions, and it's all data-driven. It's all analytics of, if the temperature rises above a certain point, these 7 things will occur and no human is involved. That's the power of IoT. That's the opportunity in IoT. Somebody has to figure out what are the right and wrong interactions to occur. And that's the challenge we have in IoT.
Thanks. So I'm just going to do a little time check. So please help me. A minute's worth may step. But if machines start talking to machines, let's just pick up on this thing. Do we have to worry about cybersecurity, or are we going to have crooked machines? I mean, how's that kind of world plays out where we are out the middle, so to speak, as the connectors?
I think simply because there are going to be so many devices are getting online, and the fact that we are getting more and more traffic, more and more network, actually there's a bigger surface of security risk exposed, and all these devices have all different platforms, different hardware, different software, different application, different operating systems, and so actually the security risk is a lot higher. The surface is a lot larger, and it's harder to secure. And because also these devices are in not just IT devices, but they're in critical infrastructure in operation, it can be life-threatening. So the stake is actually a lot higher.
So Bill, you started this whole idea of machine learning. So let's just kind of stay on this thread.
Okay.
So you also mentioned that there's bad data, there's redundant data. So if I'm teaching machines through bad data, I mean, do we have now very sort of crooked or very strange machines now? I mean, how's that the relationship between machine learning, which leads to AI, and bad data?
Right. Well, actually, so since I need to keep it under 1 minute, right? So basically, the answer is actually the answer is simple, although probably doing it is not that easy. Okay. So the thing is that machine learning, we're talking about self-learning. Okay. So whenever we are dealing with humongous amount of data, the way that we used to do in our days, right? You want the computer to do something, you have to go and program it, right?
I'm not that young.
Okay, so right now what we need to do is to have a machine that can learn by itself, so that it doesn't need to be programmed. So it's no longer what do we call the machine. So the machine will capture the information and will keep catching information. I don't know where you guys heard about the AlphaGo, the computer, right? The DeepMind computer that beat the Go world champion. Well, the reason why the machine was able to beat the champion is because the machine itself could play 1,000 games a day, because it doesn't have to sleep, and it keeps playing. It plays against itself. And the more game he plays, he captures more information that he can use against in the next round. Okay, so that's the thing we need to go and move toward, is to have machine that will learn things by itself. By gobbling more and more data, it will be learning and learning more. Okay, and in essence, hopefully, the humans will eventually at some point stay away, and we'll just provide the initial feed, and that's it.
Thank you, Bill. So let me bring home. Now, I know a lot of you are either coming from the professional, tech professionals, or engineering professionals, and some of you are entrepreneurs. I mean, that's sort of the cross-section of people we have here. So I want to bring it home, because I think that to me is the really critical issue. So first of all, I think May talked about that at one point when she was scanning the horizon, there was no opportunities, it didn't look like. Well, Richard Branson, in my opinion, said it best. Opportunities like buses, there's always the next one coming. That's kind of, which is true, in some ways things are evolving, but you have to keep up with what's been done and what needs to be done. So I want to go around again, give a minute each to really give the best professional or entrepreneurial advice. In terms of, let's just say there's two kinds of people here. One saying, IoT looks like a pot of gold, and maybe I should do something, and which is true. I mean, in each wave, the reason I was describing the waves, in each wave, if you knew about the wave at the beginning of the wave, if I knew at the beginning of the wave, I would have made a lot smarter decisions in terms of if I would base the Facebook stock or whatever the case may be. So I think that I'm hoping that there's some smart ideas you would take, and maybe even after we finish, you can ask these people the questions. But basically, professional, personal, entrepreneurial advice, where do you see the opportunity, what kind of action steps a lot of people here should take so they can really capitalize on this business of IoT.
Okay.
And 1 minute each. So
okay, sure. So basically, actually this advice, the advice is actually for entrepreneurs. Now in this case, we're talking about IoT entrepreneurs. But actually the answer is actually going to be the same, no matter what endeavor you are going to get into. Is that in order to be successful, okay, don't follow the crowd, okay? Actually, I'm helping May here. If she's going to security, don't also get into IoT security, okay? Go into an area where you're going to be either upstream or downstream from her. So no matter where she succeeds or her competitor succeeds, you will play a role in it. Okay, so that's my advice. My advice is that look at where everybody's jumping into and stay out of it. And think about what they will be needing, either as a supplier to them or as somebody who follows their stuff.
Thank you, Bill. May, before you respond, let me add to it, because you and Gary are the people who are hiring people who have some trade expertise like cybersecurity or other things, but also IoT. Now, this is kind of my math, but when you look at a $1 trillion market by 2020, that seems to be the mid-range. When you do the normal numbers, that are typical revenue per employee is around $250,000, $300,000. So that's about 4 million people working in the industry. And if 25% of these are technical, it looks like a very huge gap between demand and supply. And since May, you're closest to really finding some leading-edge professionals, I mean, are you seeing this gap? Or so add this piece to your advice, that what's the shortage look like in this business, coming down the stream?
Very good question. And come back to what Bill said. The good news is, May here, I'm here, I'm not the crowd. So you can still welcome to come to security. There's still lots of opportunities. Actually, that's
she has a lot of openings in her.
I actually can speak about what we're seeing when we're hiring people. There are two areas very, very challenging to get good people. And I strongly encourage you guys, if you're thinking about what to do next, consider these two areas. The first one is security. And actually, their statistics shows 2 years ago they did a survey. There are going to be 1.6 million shortage on security experts. And actually, this year, 2 years later, not only this number was not improving, but it's actually getting worse. Now they're predicting a shortage of 1.8 million. And even though the number of security people are increasing, but the demand is even higher. So security is definitely one thing. And also one good thing about security, you got this job security, because there's always mouse and hat game. And then the second area is definitely data. I feel now almost every person who can even spell data science gets a job. It's just so hard to get a good data scientist, especially with some experience in industry. So those will be great two areas.
Thank you. If I were giving advice to anybody who's thinking about what to do next and how am I going to participate, not getting lost in the shuffle, the thing I tell students and the thing I tell people all the time when I talk about IoT is there's really four aspects. And you as engineers are playing in one of these four aspects today to this whole notion of IoT. One is software and software engineering. Another is electronics and how devices work and how devices interact. The other is with data and data science and understanding how data is transferred, how data is stored, how data is used, and that piece. And then the fourth aspect, I'm not just saying this because I work for Cisco, but it's networking. It's how connectivity works, how connectivity happens, and how you transfer and interact between devices across wireless, wired, and different forms of close networks and distant networks. And so my advice to anybody in this space would be to learn and to continue to learn and to look at areas that you're not currently involved in across these four dimensions. If you're a software engineer, that's fantastic. Learn something about electronics. Learn something about data science. If you're a hardware engineer or electrical engineer, learn something about programming. Be a programmer. Take a Python class. But the key aspect is to continue to learn, because in exposing yourself to these different aspects of what IoT is, the opportunities will reveal themselves to you. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working for a large company, the opportunities will present themselves. And I didn't just say that because PK is our host, but he might be able to do something about that for you.
Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I hope that we are leaving you with some really good questions to think about. Remember, we started with saying that our role is not here to take this 45 minutes and give you a lot of answers, but really give you a lot of questions. We are all available after the thing, but first and foremost, I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. Please join me in thanking our panel for... Thank you very much. this thing.